And I remember a key example that you shared with me once was how the design of what an experience for someone who is blind or low vision could benefit everyone because you're in space and there's a blackout and all of a sudden your vessel, if that's what we want to call it, is fitted in a way that people know how to navigate it without the need for being able to see. Are there any sort of key examples of things like that where you've just seen the benefit has been so obvious and that people have been open to creating the design based off the experience of people with disability?
Yeah, and they're really simple and obvious, and things that you'd be like, oh, that is a design consideration. So, for instance, we set up a lighting system which described what portion of flight the aircraft was in. So, I think green meant we were in microgravity, blue meant we were at level flight, and red meant we were going into hypergravity when the airplane was going up. And you can communicate visually quicker than you can communicate audibly. So everyone in the plane ended up using the light signals to understand which portion of flight we were going into, um, when it was really mainly designed for the hearing impaired group to do things. And as you mentioned before, having tactile surfaces is great for knowing where you are if the lights go out and navigating. Oh, if you touch this panel right here, you know you're in this specific area due to whatever, and you have this information, and let's say there's a fire and there's smoke, so you can't see, you can navigate to a fire extinguisher to help put it out. So it's very simple things that seem intuitively obvious, but it's not always the thing you're thinking about when you're designing a very complicated spacecraft. Um, and so being able to provide these inputs and show that things that might be perceived as risky aren't, is helping us take that step forward.
And how open is the greater space industry to working with the disability community?
It's getting there. For the most part, this is a new conversation within the space industry. For decades, the only people who went to space were government sponsored astronauts who had, air quotes, the right stuff. Um, and we're getting into a point where members of the general public are and will be flying to space regularly. And that really opens the aperture on the types of people you're dealing with. Not everyone is like an elite athlete going to space anymore. We've seen that with William Shatner, who is 90, who went up in a Blue Origin spacecraft last year sometime. Um, there's almost no 90-year-old that doesn't have some form of a disability, and so that's something we can take into account.